Well, this isn't exactly your average-sized pumpkin patch.
No, the demand has pushed the size of it out. It's about as big as we can grow.
How many years have you been growing pumpkins
This
here?
will be our about 5th year.
My goodness, this isn't exactly your average-sized pumpkin either.
No, these are our pie pumpkins, though.
Pie pumpkins? This size?
Yes, we've experimented over the years with varieties and done side-by-side tests. This is Shumway's Golden Mammoth, and in side-by-side tests, this makes the tastiest pies of anything we've tried. The only problem is there's probably 50 pies in that pumpkin, so you need to
Neighborhood pumpkin
invite
pie
your
festival.
neighbors in.
You grow other varieties of pumpkins besides
Yeah.
this? That makes a lot of pies and a big jack-o'-lantern, but I can't see your average kid walking off with it.
Yeah. Well, all the pumpkins make good pies, and over the years we've winnowed it down to 3 basic varieties. This Golden Mammoth, and then over here we have the Connecticut Field basic standard jack-o'-lantern pumpkin, and a newer one that we've had real good luck with is a hybrid called Autumn Gold, and it's on a further field over there. We'll look at it a little bit later.
Well, you get the big ones, and those are medium-sized ones. How do you grow these pumpkins? What's your method of growing them?
Well, it's kind of evolved into a system, and it involves more than growing just the pumpkins. We start out on this field right here the first week in April, and we plant sweet corn. And when it is harvested, we'll come in here and plant the pumpkins the first week in July. And this is very important because if you plant pumpkins too early, they'll ripen too early, and you end up the 1st of August with a whole lot of cooked pumpkins out
And
here
there's
in the
not
field.
much demand for pumpkins
Not
in the middle of
not
August.
that early. And it also helps us with the squash bugs. This is a real bugaboo for pumpkin growers. And by delaying the planting to the first week in July, I think we starved out a lot of those overwintering squash bugs.
They don't have a chance to build up because they're basically starving out during the sweet corn, and they never have a chance to build up. If you had started out with a spring squash crop, they would build up to big numbers. By the time you get the pumpkins, you'd have big problems.
Yeah, now they will always be out here. We basically kind of ignore them, except for one stage when the pumpkin has just started to grow, just cracked the ground. They're very vulnerable, and at that time you might have to do something with them. Cucumber beetles are really bad. The pumpkin has no reserves, but that's basically the only time we worry about bugs. How we grow them?
I was going to say, this looks like a solid mass of pumpkins. I mean, yeah, what's the spacing on them?
We have evolved it out to where the rows are 15 feet apart, which is wider than most of the recommendations. And as you can see, they just fill in the middle. A single row plants probably 18 inches apart in the row. And we come in after the sweet corn is off with a lister. We have a large field, and run ditches through the field.
I can see the little furrow running down there.
And then plant the pumpkin seeds in the bottom of the furrow. This might not work if you had really clayey dirt, but it works real well. And then we irrigate down these same ditches. And as the vines begin to run, we'll try to string them out the length of the ditches. Every place there's a leaf comes up and a tendril, we'll also set roots down. And if we can get the pumpkins to set root over a long stretch, they seem a lot more rugged and they do better in hot weather.
Does that help you with the weeds? I imagine keeping just that moist section in the furrow.
Yes, in the first week in July, they don't germinate without moisture. So if we can keep the middles clean and concentrate the leaves in the row, the big pumpkin leaves will shade the weeds in the row, and weed problem doesn't turn out to be very bad at all. And it's really important to us. We don't use any herbicides. We're about 22 feet above our drinking water here. We try to take care of it.
Well, let's take a look at your autumn gold. I'm interested. I want to see that
Okay,
variety.
it's a promising variety.
So you're growing sweet corn and pumpkins on the same patch of ground. So you're getting 2 crops, sort of the same acreage?
Well, actually we're getting 3. And that's probably one of the key points to the whole system and how we grow pumpkins out here. As soon as these pumpkins are off of here, the first week in November, we'll come in and put a winter cover crop in, rye and Austrian winter peas, and that'll grow all winter, and we'll plow that down just before we plant the sweet corn in the spring, in the first week of April. And so when we plow just once a year at that time, we put an awful lot of organic matter back in the soil. And in this sandy soil, that's really important. And one thing about the pumpkins, their root system is so much bigger, so much more fibrous than corn's is that we don't even fertilize the pumpkins. We fertilize the corn pretty heavily, and the pumpkins just reach deeper and they pick up all the nutrients that the corn
they
may
kind of
have missed.
scavenge for the leftover fertilizer, so you don't need any extra the way you've got your rotation designed.
And that seems to work. I believe that the fields are in better shape every year that we farm them.
Now is this is your autumn gold pumpkin you're talking about?
Yes, it's a hybrid. It's fairly new. We get our seed from Johnny's in Maine, and I really recommend it, especially for people with a small home garden. The fruits are uniform, and they the vines take a lot of stress, and they have one interesting thing about them.
This is kind of bizarre looking.
Yes, they're always yellow from the very start, and that way, if the season is full of a lot of stress, or it gets cold, your pumpkins will always be orange.
I noticed back on the others, the young immature ones were green and probably basically not usable.
Yes, it kind of spoils the effect if your pumpkin is half green. But these always ripen up nice and even. Now we might cut some of these. It makes quite a difference. The people who come out here, we'll give them a shears. It's important to keep the stem on the pumpkin probably as long as you can. That's the point where the bacteria enter the pumpkin and cause it to spoil. So if you break it off, you might hurt the stem. So
what we need to do now is pick out a pumpkin and pick it.
This looks like a nice pumpkin. The stem is starting to turn a nice dark color. You can pick them greener, but they'll leak just a little bit. Usually take a little piece of paper towel over it until it is dried off. We'll go ahead and cut this one. Leave the stem as long as we can.
Now, is there any particular way to tell when they're ripe, when you should be harvesting them besides the color?
The stem will start to turn darker, but if the color is nice and orange and uniform, they'll be all right. One of my favorite objects. It just looks like harvest and abundance, and this is a sincere pumpkin. Absolutely no hypocrisy has been applied to these fields. This is a sincere pumpkin patch.
The great pumpkin would be pleased.
Yes.
Okay, now you've got it harvested. Is there any particular way you have to handle it to get it to store well or to make it through till Halloween?
No particular problem. If we gouge or cut the pumpkin in any way, it may run and scar, but these were selected before refrigeration, and the people kept the pumpkins that lasted a long time. And if you leave a long stem on it and store it in a fairly cool place, it will easily keep till April, sometimes even May of the next year.
Now I noticed you've got quite a bit of, right here in front of us, a lot of powdery mildew coming into the field. Is that giving you any problems?
No, I don't know what we do without powdery mildew. When we first started, we worried about this stuff, but what it does, it gets the vines out of the way. So you can see the pumpkins, it helps the pumpkins dry down and cure, so we welcome it. If it didn't occur naturally, we'd have to culture it and spread it in the fields.
So actually, as long as you've got your pumpkin crop made, it's not detrimental, it's actually helping you.
Yes, the objective is the pumpkins, so if there are squash bugs out here or powdery mildew, it's not a factor at all.
Now we have a pumpkin, and you eat pumpkin pie. How do you get from the pumpkin to the pumpkin pie? How do you prepare it?
Well, the simplest way is to use a couple of cookie sheets, wash the pumpkin, cut it in half, scoop out the seeds, and put a half of a pumpkin on each cookie sheet and bake it to where you can scoop the insides out. We will put it in plastic bags and freeze it, and it keeps very well. It's a beautiful golden color and makes those good pumpkin pies and pumpkin bread that we like.